He built a life filled with laughter and light, all within walls he had never fully seen. Rufus Greaves lived a good life. He had a house with green shutters and a mailbox that leaned a little to the left. A wife who laughed when she lost at cards, and 2 children who raced through the sprinklers on warm afternoons. A job that paid the bills, a sedan that started most mornings without complaint, and a neighbor who always waved but never asked too many questions. By all appearances, Rufus was a man who had found what he needed and made peace with what he hadn't. And yet, something kept nagging at him. He was content, at peace, yet this something was something he just couldn't shake. It wasn't the job. It wasn't the creaky floorboards, the bills, even the occasional stretch of bad news on the evening broadcasts. No, it was something else, something quieter, heavier. And that something was this. He lived in a giant trash can. This wasn't a topic that was brought up at dinner parties. Honestly, he didn't even think about it too often. The can was vast enough that he rarely saw its walls, and the sky, pale or brilliant, depending on the season, was always there overhead. The sour tang in the air after the rain? He blamed it on the old factory by the river. The hollow metallic ring beneath the sidewalks? Normal, he figured, if you grew up with it. Life inside the can was, all things considered, good. There were parks, libraries, hot coffee. There were front porches to sit on at sunset, and the comforting smell of someone down the block grilling steaks on Saturday nights. If something unseen pressed in from the edges of his vision now and then, if the world felt once in a while a little too small, Rufus simply tightened the screws on his routines and kept moving. Until one evening, something changed. The family had come together, his grown children and their families, laughter rising into the soft autumn air. The grill smoked gently in the corner of the yard. Plates clinked. Someone tuned an old guitar. A grandchild darted past with a paper crown made of construction paper. Rufus sat in his favorite chair, a plate of ribs balanced on his knees, watching it all with a deep, wordless satisfaction. And then he saw it. Or maybe it was a hymn. Beyond the edge of the lawn, where the light thinned into fields and the trees stooped low, a man sat alone on an old stone bench. He wore a coat the color of dust and distance. His presence was still, almost part of the landscape. Rufus frowned slightly, tilting his head. None of the others seemed to notice him. They passed plates and poured lemonade, chattered and laughed, oblivious. For a moment, Rufus thought to shake it off, to return to the warmth of his family. But something deep inside of him stirred. Not fear, not even urgency, but a quiet certainty. He set his plate down and rose to his feet. "I'll be back in a minute," he said casually, ruffling his grandson's hair. No one asked where he was going. They simply smiled and turned back to their conversations, as though some part of them understood more than they knew. Rufus crossed the yard and made his way to the figure waiting by the bench. The man rose as Rufus approached, his eyes kind beneath the shadow of his hood. "It's time," he said. "Time for what?" Rufus asked. The traveler simply locked eyes with Rufus, and he knew. It was time to leave the garbage can. And so he and the hooded traveler walked together. They passed through streets Rufus had known all his life. Past his house, the corner store where his son had bought candy, the bus stop where he had stood on gray mornings with a thermos in hand. But something was different now. The streets tilted ever so slightly inward. The sky, which had once seemed endless, now revealed itself as a circle. A bright, distant rim above. The ground itself curved up at the edges. Rufus slowed. A sinking feeling stirred in his chest, not of fear, but of realization. And then he saw it. The wall. A great, towering cylinder of dented, rusted metal. The inside of the garbage can, arching high into the sky, cradling everything he had ever known. He stared, mouth dry. "I always knew," Rufus whispered, "but I never saw." The traveler simply nodded. Rufus turned and looked back at his life. The home he had tended, the family he had loved, the small, good things he had built with steady hands. It was all there, rich and beautiful, even within the walls. He felt no shame, only a deep, aching tenderness. At the base of the distant wall, where rust met earth, a narrow crack had appeared, small, but just wide enough for a man to slip through if he was willing to stoop a little, to let go of what he carried. Rufus took a step toward it, then hesitated. The traveler waited, saying nothing. Rufus turned back one last time. Across the field, far beyond the curve of the ground, he could still see them. His family, gathered around the fading warmth of the grill. The children laughing. His wife's face lifted toward the sky, peaceful and full of light. They didn't seem to see him, and yet somehow he felt that they knew. Knew, at least in their bones, that something precious was drawing to a close. Rufus lifted his hand, not in sorrow, but in blessing. Gratitude flowed from him like a tide. Then, with a final smile, full of everything words could not contain, he turned and passed through the crack. Beyond the wall, there was light. Not harsh, not blinding, but wide and clean and new. There was grass beneath his feet, cool and damp. The air smelled of rain and morning. Rufus looked back once, at the great can that had cradled all he had known, and saw it for what it was, battered, decaying, all too temporary. He smiled, the freest smile of his life, and walked forward into the wide, rising light. The traveler walked beside him, silent and steady, and together they passed beyond the rim of the world.